If you want to feel more calm, confident, and connected in your life, the Love Your Real Life membership is for you. Members love the simple daily challenges that help create small, consistent actions that lead to the change that they want. And then the live sessions that are throughout the month that leave them feeling grounded, relaxed, and supported. There's a link in the show notes to join. I would love to see you inside of this membership. Welcome to the Love Your Real Life podcast. I'm Faith Lauterbach, and this is a space to help you heal, rebuild, and create a life you truly love, even if it looks different than you imagined. Each week, I'll be sharing tools, encouragement, and real conversations about what it means to move forward after betrayal, heartbreak, or simply life not going as planned. I am honored to walk alongside you and help you love your real life. Hello, and welcome back to the show. And welcome to February. This episode will be coming out on Monday, February 2nd, so welcome to a new month. With this being the traditional month of love, each episode this month is going to explore a different kind of love, because love isn't just one type. And so we're going to talk about how that all impacts our life and healing. And if you've recently experienced infidelity or heartbreak, love might feel like the furthest thing from your mind. Even if that's true for you, stick around because this conversation can be a really meaningful part of healing. So today we're going to start with self-love because that is the foundation of all other love in our life. And if self-love is not strong, then our other relationships are going to struggle in some way. I want to give you a little peek at what's coming this month because I'm really excited about it. Next week, we'll talk about how to date again after betrayal or heartbreak or just after a long-term relationship has ended. The following week, we'll dive into what it looks like to build a healthy relationship. And then to close out the month, I'll be interviewing my husband again, and we'll be talking honestly about the ins and outs of a real-life relationship and how betrayal in a previous relationship can impact a new one. Some of the things that we've done to support that. So I hope that's a helpful conversation for other people in that situation. But anyways, today, right now, we're going to start at the beginning. We're going to start with this foundation of self-love and the relationship we have with ourselves. A few weeks ago, I talked about building a routine on a shaky foundation and how even the best routine won't stick if that foundation underneath isn't solid. The same concept applies to relationships. The foundation for every relationship in our life, that's with our kids, our friends, other family members, and romantic partners, is the relationship we have with ourselves. And I know that phrase, self-love, can feel a little cheesy or unrealistic, or maybe like something you don't even know how to approach. You might be thinking, I don't have time to work on self-love. I have too many other things I'm trying to manage. Or if you've been through betrayal or heartbreak, you might be thinking, loving myself feels impossible right now. But I want you to know that it is possible. And more than that, it will make everything else in your life feel lighter and more supportive, especially in your relationships. Real self-love, the kind that actually helps you to love your real life, isn't about perfection or confidence or ego or even knowing what to do all the time. So today I want to talk about what loving yourself actually means and how to begin when it doesn't come natural. So something that I realized during my own healing after betrayal was this. I had never really in my entire life taken the time to know myself. And that's kind of interesting when you think about it. And so I don't know if you can relate to that, but I really didn't know myself. I made myself so busy with taking care of everybody around me and working on their issues or their problems or fixing things for them that when it came down to it, I didn't truly know who I was, which means I didn't know what I wanted or needed. And if you don't know those things, it's almost impossible to communicate them to someone else. It is impossible. And being able to do that is a really important part of any relationship. So when we don't know ourselves, somebody else can't know us. So this was kind of a realization as I was going through my own healing. And I'll tell you, learning to know and love myself didn't happen overnight. And it's still an ongoing process because just like any other relationship, we're continually in relationship with ourselves. Starting this and doing this work has been the most important part of creating a life and the relationships in it to feel aligned. So, I want to share how this process went and started for me and how you can begin it too, no matter where you're at. So, like anything, awareness was the first step. In my first marriage, I was married for 17 and a half years. And after that time, I found myself unexpectedly and abruptly not in a relationship overnight in a matter of a conversation. So all of a sudden, I had to decide on my own how I wanted to spend my time, what mattered to me, what I wanted my life to look like. And to give you a little backstory, I was 15 when I started dating my first husband. I was 20 when I had my first child and got married. That's a long time of my life to always be considering another person in my plans and in what I was doing. So to suddenly have time that was just mine brought up so much. It felt a little scary, sad, lonely, overwhelming. But then as time went on, surprisingly, I felt relief. And then that relief turned into excitement. Not because things weren't hard, they were incredibly hard, but because for the first time, I was doing things I had never done before. And honestly, even though I didn't name this at the time, I was getting to know myself. So I didn't have a structure or plan for this because it wasn't something I was consciously doing. It wasn't like I was saying, I need to get to know myself, but it just happened through the rawness of healing and being single for the first time and navigating life on my own terms. Pretty much immediately, when I found out that my life had been turned upside down, I started therapy, including EMDR, which was incredibly important. I also worked with a spiritual advisor. I journaled a lot. I read, I paid attention to how I was feeling and processed those feelings. I still have the journal that I wrote in from that season. And I have reread it from time to time for different reasons. And I'll tell you, it makes me cry, laugh, and feel incredibly proud because I was very open and upfront with how I was feeling and the things that were happening. And doing those things I know was so important to help me know myself. So, what's so meaningful to me is even in the earliest days, I wrote that someday I wanted to help other women walk through this. That's just really cool to me to see that this cycle became like a full circle where coming back to that. And I knew how important it was to have somebody that could help with those things. I feel like I was piecing together all of these parts. So I'm so proud that I have pieced together into something more comprehensive to help people who are going through this. So, awareness and curiosity were the first steps for me to learning to love myself. Awareness is where everything begins. but it's not where it ends. Once you start having awareness, you are noticing how you feel, noticing what you want, noticing what no longer fits in your life. But that alone doesn't create self love. What creates self love is a healthy relationship. So here's what comes next. You start listening to yourself and taking yourself seriously. This means when something feels off, you don't immediately talk yourself out of it. When something feels good, you don't rush past it. And you start really asking yourself, what do I need right now? What feels supportive? What feels draining? And just as importantly, you listen and you believe yourself. While you're listening to that inner voice, I think it's really important not to only notice it, but to be curious about it. One of the biggest things I learned is going through this process, my nervous system was activated a lot. And it was really my mind and body trying to give me a message to listen. Sometimes that message meant I needed to do deeper work in a certain area. Sometimes it meant I needed to have an uncomfortable conversation. And sometimes it meant I needed to remove myself from something altogether. But by listening to it and being curious, what is this trying to tell me? I didn't let the feeling, being activated, be the boss of me. I got curious as to what it meant because sometimes I was in the middle of a situation and I was extremely anxious thinking about whatever that next step was. Sometimes that meant that I needed to journal about it to work through what that anxiety was trying to tell me instead of just ignoring that situation altogether. So I don't know if this is making sense, but I feel like it can be really easy to let a feeling or feeling activated to be a scapegoat for not doing the work that's needed. So that is why these things like journaling and having time for stillness and listening to yourself, being curious, working with a therapist or a coach, all of those things are so important in this process because as you're going through that, it's really hard to know what these feelings and nervous system is trying to tell you. The next thing I'll say is practicing small acts of self trust and rebuilding that. So, just like in a relationship with anybody else, loving yourself isn't built through these grand gestures. Okay. These grand gestures might get your attention, but without the showing up consistently, they don't really mean much. So, keeping small promises to yourself is really key to building this relationship. So, for me, this looked like setting boundaries when I needed to, saying no when I meant no, taking time for myself before starting the day. So, if you've listened to this podcast before, you've probably heard me talk about the practice I started in the middle of all this, which was 5 minutes of meditation, 5 minutes of journaling. That was key to helping to learn who I was. Another thing is just letting go of the need to over explain. If you're new to speaking up for yourself, setting boundaries, listening to yourself, then you may feel like anytime you do that, that you need to over explain because you want, I think in the end, at least what I want when I'm over explaining something is I want the person to understand. I don't want the person to be hurt because I'm setting this boundary or saying no to something. So I want to make sure they understand why I'm doing it. And honestly, looking for their approval. I will just say, being able to let go of that is so helpful because many times you're not going to get somebody's approval when you're setting a boundary with them because they don't want you to be setting that boundary with them. So letting go of the need to over explain is so helpful. So trust is the foundation of any healthy relationship, and that includes the one you have with yourself. That's going to lead me into this next thing, which is making amends and forgiving yourself. So, just like a relationship with someone else, you're not going to be perfect. You're not going to always show up for yourself when you should. You're not going to always do the things that you have set out to do, that you intend to do. You're human. So, there's going to be moments when you don't keep a promise to yourself. when you maybe fall back into old patterns. And usually what happens is this shows up as shame, self-criticism, blame, feeling like a failure, maybe even telling yourself that you're a failure, or even more unkind things. But let's think about it. If you spoke to someone you love the way you sometimes speak to yourself when you mess up, they wouldn't feel very loved. And neither do you. Self-love requires repair. Making amends with yourself might look like saying, I see where I didn't honor myself there. Let's learn from it. How can I do this differently? Forgiving yourself doesn't excuse harm or excuse hurtful things you might have said to yourself, but it allows you to be human and to continue growing. And when you continue to show up for yourself and continue to make amends when you didn't show up for yourself the way you wanted to, this is what helps you build that self-trust and relationship with yourself. So, just like with anyone else, you don't build closeness and trust and love overnight. So, if you're starting from a far place from self love, that's okay. We're going to start small and be consistent. That's the most important thing. So, maybe it could be helpful to journal about what a healthy relationship with yourself looks like. Maybe just writing the things down that you expect on both ends of a healthy relationship. You can even write a letter to yourself, apologizing for what needs to be apologized for and offering yourself compassion moving forward. I think sometimes when doing this self work, it can help to imagine yourself as a child and ask for what she needed, or just visualize that child because we can be much kinder to that child version of ourselves. There is no quick fix, though. This is a relationship that you build over time. So, a few simple ways to begin right now. If you want to start building this relationship with yourself, here's some things you can try. Every morning, write 1 to 3 things down that you did well in the last 24 hours. Now, this might sound hard, or maybe it sounds like it would be easy, but doing this work every morning, writing 1 to 3 things down that you did well in the last 24 hours, helps you to build up that relationship. You're saying, I see you. And those things that you did well do not have to be big things. Maybe it's, I got through a hard conversation. I didn't punch somebody in the face that I wanted to. I mean, just joking, but it can be things like that where it's not this, I accomplished this huge thing. It's these little things that matter the most. Another thing can be having a mini check in with yourself each evening, asking yourself, what felt good today? What felt draining? How can I move forward in ways to support myself more? Another thing is keeping that awareness. And when self-criticism comes up, when you start hearing yourself say things to yourself that are unkind, ask yourself, what would I tell someone I love in this situation? Again, kind of like I said before, write a letter to yourself, offering apologies and how you want to move forward. And then just giving yourself time to discover who you are. Allow yourself to try new things. Maybe you want to try a dance class or an art class. Journal regularly. Listen to music that makes you happy. Buy yourself flowers. Just really start thinking about that relationship you have with yourself. Slowly over time, just like in a relationship with someone else, those small things add up and you start feeling loved by you. There's a quote that I recently found and shared in my last yoga class, and I think it's a really good one, so I'm going to share it with you. The longer I live, the more deeply I learn that love, whether you call it friendship, family, or romance, is the work of mirroring and magnifying each other's light. Gentle work, steadfast work, life-saving work. In those moments, when life and shame and sorrow occlude our own light from our view, but there is still a clear-eyed, loving person to beam it back. In our best moments, we are that person for another. I can't wait to share more next week about how to start dating again after betrayal or heartbreak. I have some fun stories and real stories to share about what that looked like for me and how I went from I will never be in a relationship again, which is what I used to say all the time, to being married to my soulmate. All right, let's talk next week. Thanks so much. Thank you so much for listening to the Love Your Real Life podcast. I hope that today's episode was just what you needed. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you're looking for more support, check out the show notes for how to connect. Remember, no matter what your story holds, you are worthy of living a life that you love. Talk to you soon.